Hello students! In the following lessons, I'll talk about an essential subject for everyone that creates WordPress themes: security. In fact, this is a topic that, due to its importance, could be brought up earlier in this course because you know what the specialists say, safety first. But for learning purposes only, I'm bringing it up now. However, I think you had the chance to see one thing or another about the subject during the course. Good, but what's the real importance of this subject for you guys as theme developers? Look, as a developer, keeping your users safe should really be your highest priority. It is no use having a beautiful, wonderful theme that does a million things if it puts your user information at risk. This is important both for those developers who want to create a theme just for themselves, for a single client, and for those who want to distribute the theme for the whole world to see. In fact, the latter should pay extra attention because security issues could leave all sites that use your theme potentially vulnerable. So the subject I'm going to talk about here is extremely important. So let's get started. First of all, two little words that you should know in order to understand the subject a little better: data input and output. When I use the word input, I'm referring to all kind of data that is given to our code. This can be from information sent by the user in a search form, for example, or by the browser's own address bar. But not only that, you have cases of data sent with the use of many existing external APIs, for example. Now, when I talk about data output, most of the times I'm talking about those moments when an application, our theme for example, is displaying some data to the user on the screen. But it's not only that. The question is a bit more complex, but to make things easier to understand, let's say that data output refers to what the user is seeing on the screen, right? When we talk about security in WordPress themes, we must take into account three concepts: validation, sanitization, and escaping. At first, the three concepts may look the same, but they have quite remarkable differences. Validation is a type of check made to ensure that the data you're going to receive is actually the type you expect them to be. When you validate a data, it's like you want to say the following: I just want the data I'm getting to have this, this, and this. For example, when I validate an email, I just want the data I get to be in the form of a valid email. If it's not, I don't even get it, or I correct it, or I tell the user to correct it before receiving it, okay? Usually you validate the data in the input. That is, before the data is sent to the database, you need it to be validated. Sanitization is a bit different. When you sanitize data, you take that data, remove what you don't want from it, and get what's left from it. This means that you may end up with a modified data during the process. So it's different when compared to data validation. It's like you want to say, I don't want my data to have this, this, and this. The main purpose of sanitization is to leave data safe to use at any given time. So we say that sanitization is contextual. It depends on the context, on a given moment. You should know the right time to perform a particular type of sanitization. Otherwise, you may end up with invalid and useless data. For example, if you're creating a field that should receive email data, you cannot apply a sanitization function made to be used with numeric data. If you do this, the function will filter the email and reduce everything to numeric data. In the end, you end up often without the information you wanted, without the email, because you only have numbers instead. Another thing that sanitization does is it prevents some data from being interpreted as code when it should not. And then we have that comic strip called Exploits of a Mom. And I think you know this comic strip, also known as the Little Bob Tables' comic strip. Hi, this is your son's school. You're having some computer trouble. Oh dear. Did he break something? No way. Did you really name your son Robert Drop Table Students? Oh yeah, Little Bob Tables we call him. Well, we've lost this year's students' records. I hope you're happy. And I hope you've learned to sanitize your database inputs. That's a great comic strip, at least for the ones who can get it. That is, if the staff of the school has sanitized the database input, the boy's name would never be treated as code, and nothing of that would have happened. Of course, a hyperbolic story to show something very common in the computer world. It's a typical programmer's comic strip, by the way, one of the best I've ever seen. So let's move on, just to finish here. So we usually sanitize data inputs too, okay? In the case of little Bob tables, the problem happens when data is being sent to the database. Okay, and how about escaping? Escaping is the process of protecting the output by removing unwanted data. The goal here is to stop data from being interpreted as code when they are output. For example, malformed HTML or script tags, they cannot be shown as code on output. That's very dangerous. This is a very serious problem. Non-escaping fields can lead to full browser control by malicious code under certain circumstances, and they are an open door to a very common threat called cross-site scripting, also known as XSS. Let me show you a simple example for you to understand how big is this problem. Let's go to our homepage template file. Let's suppose that the heading tags of our section were written just like this. Here I just have a simple variable and I echo it out to display its content on the screen. It seems a very harmless thing. After all, the only thing this is going to show on the screen is text, right? For example, let's set the value of the variable up here. Like this. So this value could be coming from anywhere, okay? For example, it could be coming from the database. Let's assume an attacker managed to modify its value somehow. Let's say this attacker could modify its value to something like this. As the value of the variable is not being escaped, it is simply being displayed on the screen with an echo, the JavaScript code will be executed on the screen. Let's see it. Look at that. Our theme has just been hacked. To avoid this, we could use this function called ask_html. This function can handle the output and prevent it from being interpreted as code by the web browser. Now let's see what happens. Great, there you are. Now the problem doesn't happen any longer. As you see, we've got this strange text here, a script tag, but it's not interpreted as code anymore. This is a pretty silly example, but think of a more catastrophic scenario. So WordPress has several functions that can help us validate, sanitize, and escape content. We have already met some of them during the course, but let's go even deeper in the next lessons. So see you next time. Until then.